Studio Online. My name is Jessie. I'm going to be teaching you this painting here called Maple Falls. I'll be telling you about all the colors, all the techniques, everything you need to know to make this painting on your own. That being said, guys, if you don't like anything about the painting, if you want to change something, if you want the trees to be different, you want anything to be different in this painting, feel free to go ahead. I want you guys to be happy, so it's your painting. And that being said, we've got a couple supplies here that you should have. You should have, first of all, a brush roll with 4 different kinds of brushes. You should have your large flat brush, your medium flat brush, your medium round brush, and your detail brush. We'll be using all of those at different points in our painting, and I'll be letting you know which ones we're going to be using. So right away I'm going to go ahead and put these in the water cup that you guys should have gotten, filled with water, and this is a great place for your brushes to just kind of sit whenever you're not using them so that they don't dry out, so you can use them for other paintings, and it's also great for washing off your brushes in between colors. And then you've also got this handy dandy little rag that's great for drying off your brush once you have washed them. And then of course you have your palette and your paint. I'm going to be using that as well. Now to start with this painting here, oh, one more thing guys, if there's any point that you need to, take a break, pause the video, do any of that, just, if you need your paint to dry for whatever reason, just go ahead and pause the video, and then whenever you're ready to get back into it, just unpause it and we can keep going. But so for this painting, we're going to start kind of in a negative way from how we usually do paintings, is we're going to paint the entire thing like almost black. It's going to be like a navy, really dark, rich blue-black. And we're going to kind of go in and put all of our lights into our painting as we go along. So we're going to start dark. And so I am going to be taking my largest flat brush, this guy here, and then I'm going to mix mostly black with some blue. So you can see I've got this really like dark navy blue black. It looks pretty much black on the screen, but trust me, you don't want to use complete black or else it's just gonna look like a void. You want it to be kind of a nice blue black. So you can just go ahead and cover the entire canvas with this blue black. And I'm trying to do a thin layer because you really only do one layer when you're doing really dark colors, and that way it'll also dry faster so you can continue on a little bit quicker. So try not to glob the paint on, just doing a nice even layer. Once your entire canvas is covered in this paint, you can go ahead and take your first break. I know we just started, but we do want this to all dry before we go on and start putting in all of the fun parts of our painting. So go ahead, pause the video, take about 5-10 minutes just to let it dry. Grab a beverage or 2 if you were feeling it. But yeah, so whenever you're ready, whenever this is dry, you can just unpause the video and then we can get started again. Alrighty guys, now that this is all dry, we're going to start working on kind of the water here down below as well as the waterfall. So I'm grabbing my large flat brush again, kind of washing it off. And to do this, we're just going to make a kind of a lighter version of the color we did before, so we're still going to use blue and black, but this time it's going to be mostly blue with just a little bit of black. So I got my kind of dark blue there. And for this, you're just going to do kind of like the bottom, let's say 2 inches of your canvas with this color. Yeah, that's about right. So I'll just make a line going across where I want the water to be. And I'll cover the bottom 2 or 3 inches depending on how much water you want there to be. Go. And once you've got that, we're going to use that color up top as well to kind of start creating our waterfall effect. Now this waterfall is very I would say gestural and kind of, what's the word, impressionistic. It's not super structured, it's more so just about the mark making and the color, so you don't have to worry about making it look super realistic. But once I've got this color, I'm gonna start by making a kind of line down the middle of my canvas. This is just the darkest color we're starting with. I'm gonna add some water to make it spread a little bit nicer. Acrylic and water really go well together. Kind of think of them as buddies. They really mix well together, and it helps blend colors, it helps spread colors better. It just makes everything a lot easier. But I'm making just kind of a thick line with this, and then as I'm bringing it out towards each of the edges, I'm kind of tapering it off a little bit. I'm bringing it up, so it's kind of like coming up at an angle to the corners of each of the sides of the canvas. But again, I'm being really gestural with this. Doesn't have to be super exact. It's more about just these really long gestural strokes I've got here. There we go. That looks good to me. Alright, now that we've got the start there, we're going to start to lighten it up a bit. So I'm going to wash off my brush. Now we're going to get just pure blue. Kind of do the same thing here. Now I don't want to completely cover my dark blue that I had with this. I'm just going to kind of go over it in some manner, add some highlights here and there, make it brighter as I go. It's just kind of layering kind of dark to light colors to build them up and add a lot of levels of depth to them is kind of what we're going for here. Alright, now we're going to go in with a light blue. So I'm going to get some blue and a little bit of white, mix those together. I've got a kind of a medium light blue. Alright, so I've got my color right there. Doesn't have to be super mixed together because again this is a super impressionistic painting, so it can have some kind of color variation within your brush strokes. Then I'm just going to kind of drag my strokes down like this and kind of let the paint mix together. And I can also use the side of my brush like this instead of the flat part of it. I can use the edge to kind of make some thinner brush strokes if I want. And don't worry if your painting doesn't look exactly like the original. Mine isn't, because every painting, you know, it should be different. It's kind of how painting is supposed to work. It's how art is supposed to work. It's your own interpretation. And so I want to make sure that the bottom of kind of the center of my waterfall is touching where the water meets at the bottom, because that's kind of where it's falling. So I'm doing some strokes up from that area just to make sure it looks like it's falling on that. Sometimes it's easier to just hold it up in front of you while you paint. Painting from the side is a little bit difficult sometimes. Alright, there's that. And then the last color we're going to add here for our waterfall is white, and I'm actually going to switch to my smaller flat brush here. And I'm just going to dip into pure white. And then this will be kind of a highlight color for the water, and I'm concentrating it more in the center, and especially at the bottom here of our waterfall where the water kind of starts to foam up. But I'm just dragging this upwards, adding some highlights here and there, and because the paint is still wet, it's definitely going to blend in with those blues, but I'm definitely okay with that. I think it adds a cool layer of texture And because we're doing this so gesturally, all of our paintings are gonna look different. So there's no problem with that. And I always like working on a darker background because you can see as you layer up the colors, it kind of starts to look like it's glowing, which is super cool. But I'll say that's good for now. We're gonna move back down to the water here, and I'm gonna switch to my medium round brush, and then we're gonna do kind of a similar thing that we did with the waterfall. We're gonna do that down here. So I am going to grab pure blue with this, and we're gonna start to make this kind of this horizontal highlight that we've got going underneath our waterfall here. So I'm going to be making some horizontal strokes with my water, and I can kind of let that white that's hitting the bottom here kind of blend and streak across. But I'm focusing my highlight kind of in the center where the white from the waterfall will be kind of shining down. And then I'm just tapering it out as I go down, bringing it out in a little bit, using horizontal strokes to make it look like it is water. All right. All right, so we've got our first shade, and now I'm going to go in with that light blue we used for one of the highlights. I still got it here, so I'm still going to use that same color. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to kind of layer this in the middle where the highlight would be strongest. Alright, and there is our highlight on the water. I'm gonna let that sit. I'm gonna kind of move away from that area for a while. Next we're going to start on the hills on the side, but if you need to take a little break, feel free to pause the video and then we can get back started in a couple of minutes. Guys, once you're ready, we can go in and do the hills around our waterfall there. Now the hills, you can't quite see it here, but there's kind of two layers of hills. There's one up higher up and then one a little bit farther down here. If I hold it up, maybe you can see. So you can see this one down here is a little bit lower and kind of in front of that other hill on top. Cool. So we're gonna go in with our small flat brush and we're gonna make kind of like a dark blue-green here. So I'm gonna take some pure blue and then I'm gonna grab just a tiny bit of yellow to start, just to see what that gets me. Maybe a little bit more yellow. I'm using the yellow sparingly because if you put too much in, it'll look more of like a really warm green, and we want kind of a cooler green, so I'm using more blue than yellow. Okay, that looks good. Now I've got my kind of tealy blue-green. I'm going to start by making the outline of those hills, and so that's just going to be kind of a lump that goes down like that. It's like a one hump, two hump, and then it goes down. Now kind of in the same manner that we did the waterfall, we're going to use our downward strokes just to kind of give it that more textured and gestural feeling. You don't have to go all the way down to the bottom with this color because we're going to go in and do our other hill in just a minute. Now I'm seeing that this is a little bit dark, so I'm going to add just a tiny bit of white to our color, just so it shows up better against that black. There we go. So again, that's mostly blue, some yellow, and a little bit of white to get our medium teal color. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Alright, and then we're going to go in and do the hill in the front as well. This is just a kind of more squat shape. And the same texture that we did before. Might need to make some more of this color. And again, I'm bringing this almost all the way down to the water, but you don't have to cover it completely. It gives a cool, like, kind of shadow effect at the bottom. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And there you have your hills. So at this point, we're going to take another short little break just to let this all dry before we go in with all the trees and this little piece of ground there, and then all the last little highlights. So another short 5-10 minute break. Pause the video, and then when you're ready to jump back in, just unpause it. Alrighty guys, so once this is all dry again, we're going to go in and start doing this little hill thing that's here. So I'm going to grab my medium round brush to start. Now, the majority of this that's showing here is mostly just like tall grass, so you don't really need to make like a defined hill shape. But what I'm going to do first when I'm going in is I'm going to grab some orange and a little bit of white. Kind of equal parts orange and white here. I've got a medium light orange, and we're just going to go in and make some really curved, tapered grass shapes that just kind of make a little hill in the bottom left corner of our canvas. I'm just going to cover that area with this color. It doesn't need to be super solid because we're going to be layering a lot of different colors on top. I just wanted to get that kind of grassy texture in there first. Now that that is in there, we're going to go ahead and put in some darker colors just to add some depth. So I'm going to grab some pure orange. Kind of layer this on top near the bottom. You can also have some just pieces of grass of this color. And don't worry about the colors blending. That is a-okay. Alright. So now we've got that in there. Don't need to wash out my brush, but I'm just going to dip into pure red and add a few strokes of this near the bottom. Alright. And then last but not least, we're going to add one last little bit of lighter color to that. So I'm going to grab some yellow, a little bit of white, mix those together on my palette. And we're just going to add some strokes of this to the tops of the grass to kind of highlight it. Go. Now you have your little hill. Bring this closer to the camera so you can see it. Got all those different colors in there. Alright, so next we're going to go in and start kind of building our trees. We'll just start with the kind of branches first. So I'm just going to go in with pure brown to start. And I've got my little detail brush, that's the tiny guy. And these trunks and all the branches are pretty thin, you can see there. pretty spindly little trees. So that's why I'm using my detail brush to make sure that they're nice and thin, and I'm being careful about where I'm putting my branches. So this one is coming up from the hill there, so I'll start that. And I'm kind of adding some other branch shapes that's going up. Now, it's just one thing you need to remember about trees is that they're always going to be thicker at the bottom than they are at the top. So I'm keeping my trunk pretty, at least a little bit thicker than the branches as they taper off and branch off, making them a little bit thinner. And then I've got this other part of the trunk that comes up and then heads toward the waterfall and branches off in a couple of areas. Now once you get to the tops of these parts of the branches, you don't really have to worry because then they're going to be mostly covered up by these guys. So I'm just going to kind of make a little bit of a skeleton of where I want my branches to kind of house the leaves. And then we'll move to the other one. You can see it's kind of coming off the edge of the canvas here. And then again, I'm kind of deciding where I want my leaves to fall. I'm just kind of creating a little framework for that. So you can see they're pretty dark right now compared to the rest of the canvas. So I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight to them. So I'm going to grab some more brown and a little bit of white to get a lighter brown. And then I'm just going to streak this over where I have my darker brown. Not completely covering it, but just kind of highlighting it. Alright, there you can see my trees a little bit better now. Alright, so we're gonna jump from the trees down into the water real quick. If you need to pause the video, go ahead, but I'm just gonna move on to our water right next. Hey guys, so now I'm going to move on to kind of the water here, that little splash of foam where our waterfall meets our water. So I'm going to grab my detail brush again and washing it off. And to start, we're going to make a really, really pale blue. So I'm grabbing mostly white, and then just the tiniest little touch of blue. Right. So I've got my really pale blue right there. And then what I'm going to do with this color is make some initial kind of like marks of where I want my foam to be. So you can use a couple different marks here. I'm using some swirls, using some dots, some lines coming out, and kind of just moving my brush around to make it look like it's just a natural formation of foam. Can also have some down in the water here. There we go. And then I'll also kind of just dash this color across the bottom. Little dapples for some shine. I like to add a lot of shine, so put a lot of this color down. There we go. Alright, and then I'm just going to wash off my brush really quick, and then I'm going to dab into some pure white just to add a really bright highlight, and I'm just dabbing this color on where I have my foam to add one layer of really bright I'm concentrating it near where the falls meets the water. If you feel like you added too much of one color, you can always go back and just go over it with whatever color is underneath it. I'm putting a little bit of this in the water as well. Alright. Now that we've got that on there, we can go ahead and move back into our trees in just a second. So now we can move into our trees and start doing that. And like with most things that we're doing in this painting, we're going to start dark to light. So I am going to grab my medium round brush and I'm going to dip into pure red. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just creating little clumps of leaves and like a little halo or crown on my branches. Now you don't have to be like everything else in this painting. You don't have to be super like specific about where you put your little daps of paint. They don't have to be completely connected to the branches. I'm just kind of haloing them in little clumps around my branches. And feel free to have them overlap the waterfall a little bit. And I like to have some areas where you can see the branches coming through and some where the leaves are very concentrated and so you can't see anything underneath them. So I'm concentrating my red in some areas and just kind of dappling them on in other areas. And feel free to have some kind of leaves that are a little bit stray and they're just kind of up here, not connected. It looks a bit more whimsical in my opinion. All right. We've got that side, now we're going to go ahead and do the other side. And feel free to have some clumps of branches or leaves that are a bit farther down. They don't all have to be at the ends of your branches. You can have some that are a little bit farther down your branches. I'm super like perfectionist about my mark making. You guys definitely don't have to be. That's just how I am with painting, and everyone's different. Alright, so I've got my first color on there. I can go ahead and just really quickly wash off my brush. You don't have to do a really thorough job of it. We just want to get the majority of the red off there. And then we can go ahead and just grab some pure orange. And then we'll layer this over the top of our red here, kind of focusing this color more towards the top of our little clumps. We've got one clump here. And if the colors mix, don't even worry about it. That's kind of part of the fun of Impressionist paintings. Again, I'm having some of the leaves that are kind of stray, not exactly belonging to a clump. Now if you're finding that your orange isn't looking as bright as you want it to, feel free to add a little bit of white, like we did with the grass. I might do that just to make them show up just a little bit better. Because they're going to be on top of, you know, the dark red, dark green. You want to make sure that they are really bright orange. And if you do feel like switching to your detail brush at any time during this painting, feel free to do so. It does, you know, get a smaller brush stroke, so if you're looking for more detailed leaves, feel free to grab that. Alright, I'm going to go to the other side now. And if you want a smaller brush stroke, you can just use the tip of this and just kind of dab lightly. Or if you want to make a larger brush stroke, you can use the side of it and make a big little dab. So you can kind of control how large or small your brush strokes are by putting more pressure on the tip of your brush. Alright, now we've got our orange in there, we can move on to a nice light yellow. So I am actually going to switch to my detail brush, and I'm actually also going to take a short little break myself. You guys don't have to, but I am just going to wait for this to dry before putting on the yellow because I want it to be really bright. So I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes to let this dry. You guys don't have to. You can, you know, keep the video going. I'll be with you in just a couple of seconds. But I'm going to take a short break just to let this all dry before I put on the yellow. Alrighty guys, once this is all dry, I'm going to go ahead and add that last color into our trees. And I am actually going to grab my detail brush for this because I want these to be really nice, fine little leaves. So now I'm going to grab white and yellow, mix them together in my palette to get a nice bright light yellow right there. And then we're going to dab this color kind of like the same way we did before. I'm just making sure these are a bit smaller and more kind of concentrated towards the tops of our little clusters. Going to the other side, adding this color in over here. Okay, there we go. Our trees are all done. So getting there nice and layered and bright looking, nice and full. So now what we're going to do is kind of use these same colors here in the water. So I'm going to switch back, wash off my brush, switch back to pure red. You know, I don't want a lot of this color in there because it's just supposed to be kind of a nice reflection. It doesn't want to, I don't want to overpower the blue. I'm just going to add a streak of this, a little dap of this here and there. Then I'll go in with some orange, light orange. Do the same thing. And again, I don't want to completely cover the white, but if you do put a little bit too much of these colors in there, you can always go back with white or blue and fix them right up. Alright. Then lastly, I'll go in with that light yellow once more. Alright, and that is your finished painting right there. So our last kind of unofficial step for this is to just sign your painting. So you can do this with any color, but I find either black or white works best depending on your background. My background here is kind of dark, so I'm going to grab some white, and then in my bottom right hand corner, I'm just going to put my initials, just like that. So then everybody knows this is your painting and it's the best thing you painted all day. You should be proud of it. It's a nice gestural painting, you guys. Always super fun. I hope you guys had fun. I certainly did. I love this painting. But that being said, guys, we really want to actually see what you guys have done. So if you want to post these to Facebook, Instagram, what have you, feel free to tag us, Splash Studio, and we'll get to see those. That being said, that is all I have for you. You can keep the materials for any other creative projects you guys want to do. Hope you all stay nice and safe out there, stay healthy, and I hope to see you on the next one.